our first Dziga Vertov movie.
Right.
Maybe his first movie.
I
Was
don't
it
think
his
it's
first
actually
movie?
his first movie, but first one that we're covering.
Kino Eye, which is basically a la Man with a Movie Camera. Have you seen Man with a Movie
I
Camera,
have seen Man
Glenn?
with a Movie Camera. I
Oh,
have not seen Kino Eye.
same. A la Man with a Movie Camera. It's kind of like this manifesto on what cinema can be.
Mm-hmm.
And like Man with a Movie Camera, when I saw it a decade ago, I was like, okay, this is cool, but what's the point?
I was much more impressed when I saw Man with a Movie Camera than this, which makes sense because he made it like 6 years later or whatever.
Yeah.
Not 6 years, like 5 years. Yeah, I mean it's an experimental film. It's like Secret Vertov being like, hey, movies can be anything. Like they're a whole different. I do think the philosophy behind it is something I really agree with, which is that like
Yes.
the Kino eye, the cinema eye, is not the human eye, and it doesn't have
Hmm.
to abide by the same rules. So there's a lot of this movie is sort of documentary footage of just life in the countryside in the Soviet Union in 1924.
Yeah. It's a documentary, essentially, but it's a
Yeah,
documentary where they're just kind of like messing with stuff the
right.
whole
But
time.
it's like establishing
Form.
this kind of sense of reality through the documentary stuff of like here's people, they're going to work, they're doing handing out flyers, getting food, whatever,
Yeah.
and then it breaks that through some kind of like camera trickery. So then it'll be like, hey, these people working on a farm, and then like a bunch of the footage is reversed. So we're seeing like in reverse a cow going from being meat to back to being a cow, kind of.
Yeah. There's a card that comes up that says Kino Eye moves time backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So basically it's saying like here are the ways that you can make cinema that does not have to be the way that reality works. And so it has a couple of these reverse segments of a cow being unslaughtered and bread being unbaked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think along with this is like it's a propaganda movie
Mm-hmm.
about the Soviet Union, uh, and it's heaping all of this like praise on these young pioneers, which are this kind of like Soviet version of Boy Scouts and Girl
Yeah.
Scouts, uh, though being presented in a way as if they're like self-governing entities and with no adults around. Uh, so they're like putting up propaganda, and it's like cute and also like patriotic. Um, but then there's also a lot of this stuff of, and I think like another thing that it's doing with this kind of like reverse process of unmaking the food is that it is showing you all of the steps of like the labor involved in
Yeah.
making the food,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's saying like, look at the butcher whose job is this. Look at the farmer whose job is this. Look at the look at all the steps in between and all of like the human power that goes into the food that you eat, right? So it's like coming at this like from a worker's perspective too.
Yeah, for sure. Um, my note on this is that watching a cow getting butchered in reverse reminded me of watching Guy Fieri eating in reverse. I don't know if you're familiar with that
No.
internet phenomenon. I think it started on Conan. He did a thing of Guy Fieri eating in reverse, which is as upsetting as it sounds. Um, but yeah, I did think that the way that it sort of would take something that is sort of very documentary style, and then trying to kind of subvert that through some kind of you know it does a lot of overcranked like slow motion stuff. There's like Kino Eye shows you how to dive properly or something like that. It's guy
Yeah.
diving in slow motion. There's some like animation and like animated diagram stuff, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, there's like a Lottie Reiniger-esque like cutout
yeah,
animation at one point. There is also like at the end of each reel, there's like there's this like an animation style called pixelation, not like pixels, but like with an I.
mm,
Pixelation that is the term for basically like using human bodies
mm-hmm,
as stop motion props, and so it uses a pixelated hand drawing like end of the second reel
Right. Yeah.
in like a pen. It's just kind of like, and also there's this is not animation, but like another kind of formal thing that it does is this like very like modern feeling montage where they're showing the kids like building their camp that they're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of Kino eye thing of like montage, which is definitely a big Soviet thing.
There's the vodka moms dancing at the beginning.
Yeah, which it uses like a lot of like quick cutting and like extreme close-ups.
A lot more like quick, like kind of more rhythmic cutting, I think too, especially in that dancing bit. Although I will say, even though I think the editing style is much faster, I still feel like the overall pace of this movie feels very slow. To me, anyway.
It's a lot of like pastoral stuff.
Yeah.
That like there's a lot of cutting, and so it makes it feel in the moment very fast.
But it's not necessarily showing you new things very much.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're left wondering, like, what was the point of this edit, right? Like, what was it doing? And a lot of the time, it wasn't doing much.
Yeah. So Dziga hasn't quite figured out the montage editing quite yet. There's a very silly thing where it shows a shot of a street and it says the same place from a different angle, and it's the same shot like flipped sideways. And I'm like, oh, Dziga, you cheeky bugger.
See, that's the stuff. I mean, I'm excited to see Man with the Movie Camera again in context.
I think there's a lot more of that in Man in the Movie Camera, that like playful, like messing with the form kind of stuff.
Right. When I saw Man with the Movie Camera in college and they did that kind of stuff, I was just like, come on.
Right. I mean, back then it was probably very, the novelty of it, I'm sure, was a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much else to say about this.
Yeah, me either.
It was it felt interesting on a kind of an academic level, but it wasn't particularly, just watching it as a film, I didn't get that much out of it, other than just like interesting seeing an earlier version of something that I think is very cool and important, in quotes, to film history, which is like the later Dziga Vertov stuff.